The South African tobacco sector commends the growing national efforts against the economic threat posed by illicit tobacco industry. The South African Tobacco Transformation Alliance is calling for further resourcing of the SA revenue services to fight against such crimes. Now, the illicit tobacco industry has reportedly cost the country's fiscus almost 120 billion rand over the last 20 years. Now, for more on this, I am joined by Francois van der Merwe, who's the spokesperson of the South African Tobacco Transformation Alliance. Francois, big numbers, 120 billion rand, massive losses to our economy due to this illicit trade of tobacco products. Now, this has been a problem for a long time now.
Martha, yes, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head, and thank you very much for the opportunity to discuss a disaster playing out, which is a matter of national importance. At the moment, we set out with an illicit market of between 65 and 70% of the total market. It is the highest in the world. It started before 2010. It grew. SARS did good work between 2010 and 2014. And this is another casualty of the Zuma era where Moyane destroyed SARS, and that shot the illicit trade up to 40% before COVID. Obviously, the mess that government made with COVID, with the sales ban, handed the total tobacco market on a golden plate to the illicit traders. And we've never, ever recovered after that. Today, we sit between 65 and 70%. So the legal tax-paying industry with a value chain right down to the farmers is a shadow of what it was. And that is an absolute disaster because the country is at a loss for that.
And no one can deny those impacts as well. But, you know, efforts have now been made. The current SARS Commissioner, Edward Kisweta, has acknowledged this problem, that it is a huge crisis. But what is being done about it? What steps have been taken?
We must commend the SARS Commissioner and his top team and his team for what they are doing. But I must hasten to ask Treasury, you must resource SARS better. This is the best business case that National Treasury can make. If they invest the 50 million or 100 million, there's 20 billion in 1 year as a return on investment. 37 billion cigarettes are smoked in this country in a year. Last year, SARS collected tax on only 13. That means 24 billion cigarettes out there are bought and smoked by South Africans. And at the moment, excise tax is more than 1 rand per cigarette. So in the last year, SARS in 1 year alone lost 24 billion. So SARS is doing what they can, and we commend them and we support them. But much more needs to be done, and we plead for a whole-of-government approach. We need Cabinet and the President to come out and say this is a national disaster because it is. It's costing jobs. It's costing taxes. The health agenda goes out the window because cigarettes are so cheap that children can buy it, so consumption is on the increase. It's a lose-lose-lose situation, and we need much, much more. Treasury needs to invest in SARS so that they can have more forensic capabilities because the problem is not that difficult, Masa. 80% of the 24 billion illegal cigarettes in this country are manufactured locally by manufacturers who sit in the 60-kilometer radius of SARS. So better controls, better steps, more resources will have a huge return on investment, and that's what we call for. And the Commissioner has stepped up, and his team has stepped up. We commend them, but much, much more needs to be done.
And speaking of much more needing to be done, Francois, as well, of course we know that the police would also have to get involved because the illicit trade of cigarettes is illegal. What's their role? What have they done to try and come to the party with this crisis?
You're absolutely correct, Martha. This is a whole-of-government approach, as I said before. So SARS' mandate is to collect taxes, and SARS is not collecting taxes on 24 billion. So SARS must do their first homework. They must get better control over manufacturers. The value chain in South Africa is secure. The farmers, we know where their tobacco goes, who buys their tobacco, and where their end products, final products go. But the others who get their leaf from Zimbabwe, that is out of control because they do not declare the production on a 24-hourly basis. So SARS must do their homework, and they've started. There's a regulation passed to install CCTV cameras, for example, in factories. Now we see the grouping under FITA now is again taking SARS to court. So the question is immediately, what do you have to hide? if you don't want CCTV cameras for better controls. It's obvious that that grouping is undermining and they don't want to be checked. So that needs to be done. SARS needs better forensic capabilities to strengthen their audit teams, Marcel, because the audit teams go out to these factories and they come back with clean audits, which shows there's a lack of depth in the SARS audit teams. And once again, more resources, higher qualified forensic auditors in SARS can go a long way. And then there's other things, the inputs needs to be audited. The bond guarantees must be upped because it hasn't been upped for 20 years. And then licenses, Marcel. SARS is issuing licenses left, right, and center to cigarette manufacturers with very low bond guarantees. This must stop. The due diligence must be increased, must be improved, and licenses must be withdrawn for non-compliance because there's a lot of non-compliance. And once that is done, we get to your point, where now the National Prosecuting Authority and the Hawks must play their part, because criminals must be arrested and they must be prosecuted, so that those who are found guilty of stealing this 24 billion rand in 1 year can go where they should be, and that is behind bars.
So many dimensions to this problem as well. Earlier you made mention of job losses as well. Now we know that, for instance, BAT South Africa, in 2019, they had a workforce of about, permanently employed, of about 1,800. From 1,800, excuse me. Now, from 2020, we see that steady decline with job cuts of about 30% already. How much of more of an impact is this going to have, considering the huge unemployment rates that we are facing as a country as well? This is not something we need.
Absolutely not, Marcel, you're correct. This is a watershed year. 2024 will show us where we go. If illicit is not contained, it goes from 70 to 80 and 90%. You can kiss goodbye to the illegal tobacco industry. The entire market will be supplied by illicit operators. And good luck to government to tackle that. So now is the time to act. And yes, 30% loss of jobs by BAT. They've just now announced the termination of their direct store supply, which is another 500 jobs in the logistical companies. But that's not where it ends, Marcel. We have tobacco farmers in South Africa, and since 2020, we've lost 50 commercial farmers already because their market is being stolen away by illicit operators. Every farmer takes with him 50 jobs, and with that, about 200 dependents. We developed 125 emerging black farmers. Today, there are 10 left. Those farmers made a living with a secure market in tobacco. They have no market any longer. All of them employ 2 or 3 people, small-scale farmers. Today, those people have to queue for a grant. So that is the devastating impact of where we are, and more jobs will be lost if we don't get to grips with this scourge this year. Not the end of the year, now, because no factory can maintain itself with these low volumes. Over the past decade, the legal volumes have declined by 52%. The farmers' production has declined by 52%, you can imagine. And the entire legal industry now fits into only 30% of the market. So it's a sad, sad story. But the good news, Martha, is there's a low-hanging fruit that can be picked here. And the Commissioner is on the right track. His team is willing. But we need to put pressure on Treasury to put more resources into SARS. And we need the National Prosecuting Authority and the Hawks to come to the party too. And then we can pull this off, and there's a huge return on investment, return on jobs, and we can also address the health agenda, because then cheap cigarettes will disappear out of the market, and you can have a level playing field.
It's clearly a dire situation when you are describing, when we are moving from 125 black emerging farmers to 10 at the moment, and people queuing for social grants, and of course all the other farmers who are affected by this as well, and all the job losses that go with that too. From your engagements with government, what kind of reaction are you getting? Are you getting a reaction that, yes, we admit that this is a crisis, we can't continue like this, and we will go for those low-hanging fruit solutions that you speak of?
Martha, unfortunately, we do not have a very engaging government. It's a struggle. To see a minister in this country is a campaign of 3 months, and then you get meetings and it gets postponed. So it's not a very conducive environment to talk to government. But be that as it may, we've never stopped. Programs like this of yours help. Your questions help. Press releases help, studies help, the UCT study help. And we do engage with SARS. We must point that out. We must give credit there to make proposals and to assist and to share information with SARS, because we commission independent third-party research to give SARS the lay of the land and give them the picture, for example, to say that 70% of the market is illicit. These are the brands, these are the players, so you can just go and do your job. We don't have enforcement capabilities. But we need much more. As I say, it must start with a political will. And we also know illicit tobacco funds political parties, and there's connections and all these things. So, you know, there's also a question, why does it take so long to actually tackle a relatively easy problem? But be that as it may, there are positive signs. SARS is the tax collector. We believe they're on the right track. Prosecuting authority must start prosecuting. We've seen the actions against Sasfin, which was a money launderer, according to SARS, for gold leaf tobacco. So we hope more steps will follow there. But that's where the prosecuting authority also must come in, and the hawks must come in. But SARS must just continue. We will support wherever we can. We will provide information. We will make proposals, but we don't have enforcement capabilities. Government must do the job that they are paid for. And that will protect legal businesses, that will increase the revenue to SARS, that will bring back jobs, and that will give us our place, which we lost to criminals in this country.
Now, that question of political will is quite an interesting one. Thank you so much. As you are correct, more pressure needs to be put onto our government, because we just cannot have this amount of money leaving our fiscus. Thank you so much for joining us this evening and for sharing your insights with us. That was Francois van der Merwe, who's the spokesperson of the South African Tobacco Transformation Alliance.